Guys, so apologize again. I just need 5 minutes. Okay, just there is an urgent issue. Please, just hold with me for 5 minutes.
جيهان انت طلعتي لابسة بينك زينة. كنا بنلعب نضحك. انت حاطة ميوت.
بقول لك باربي لوك هذا اليوم.
Hello, good morning, everyone. Sorry about being late. Can you hear me now? Hey, how's
Yes,
everything
good
going?
morning.
Good morning.
Long time no see. Everything is going well.
Yes, how are you?
I'm fine. Good. How is Sadia? She's with us. Sadia. No.
No.
Okay. Good. So can you see my screen, guys?
Yes.
Right. I guess we reached Article 56. Okay. This article, okay. This article addresses the issue of the procedure after you have submitted all your blueprints throughout an official and registered consultancy office. What you need to do so. According to the law, the local council or the local committee in Amman districts, okay, must either accept, reject, or amend these blueprints. Ask you to amend. They don't amend it. They just bring the blueprints. I can give you an example, and they add some notes on it. The similar notes like when the students and their supervisors discuss their design issue. They ask you to amend or to clarify some of the issues if it is not clear for the engineer of the local council. As I told you, in the local council is an elected members. They may not know anything regarding architecture or engineering issues. So they may there is an once you submit these documents, it goes to the architect, or they call it the head of the engineering department, and it contain involves many engineers and architects, and they analyze and study each case one by one. They go through the documents and they examine it, and they see if it's adhere with the general rules, and they may ask you. They can may contact you because you may provide them with your phone number, or and this is the most common methodology of connection, and they connect you and ask you. Ask the owner or his or her representative, who were consultant, to come over to discuss some of pending issues. So it becomes like now this is your job to convince them in the design or in any element of the building. So they may ask you, okay, there is some kind of an issue here regarding, for example, the calculation of the building area, and it exceeds an FRA. So you need to come over, for example, since you studied this course, you may do the calculation and ask and tell them that the area of the staircase is not included according to the law. And once we apply this thing, we will adhere to the FRA that is mentioned in the land use plan. So this is very important. Actually, many, according upon my experience, sometimes it is something 100% legally, and you may face with some of the officers in the head of the engineering department, in the local council, or in the metropolitan level اللي هم باللجنة الرئيسية براس العين. And if you are not fully aware of this law, that you may lose a lot. Okay, so you need to be kind of advocate to the design that the consultant has done or you self has done and submitted. Okay, but sometimes you may be illegal, so you need to accept that. But you need to be aware that sometimes it is easy to go and discuss with the head of the engineering department or any of the architects your design, and it is that it's 100% legal, right? Particularly in the tentative approvals, الموافقة المبدئية, right? So it's kind of a debate. You need to be, you need to equip yourself with communication levels, communication skills that's good. You need to be fully knowledgeable of the law, and then you need to go and discuss it. And many times they are convinced of your standpoint. So you just not go if they ask you for any amendments and you think it is illegal and you say, oh, okay, we need to accept that. No, you need to go and discuss it. And because it will not proceed into the local council meeting unless the engineer, the head of the architectural department or the engineering department approve this law, approve this blueprints. Once we approve, go to the local council meeting, and they can just approve it, and then you pay the fees, and then you start your construction. Okay, so this is very important. That's why you need to read the law and to be fully aware of it. Once within 30 days, they may ask you to accept it without any amendments, or ask for some amendments, or reject it. Depends. Most the rejection comes in the tentative approvals. Like for example, you have a land use under the category rural residential, and you applied for some commercial building, okay, or some of the commercial activities that may cause disturbance to the neighbor or some issues, for example. So they can just easily reject the proposal. Sometimes, as I told you, you know, the fees is being mentioned in Article 72, I guess. Here, this table, 72. So the fees here, according, for example, they part of the requirement to submit the whole areas table, building areas table. So if it is a residential area, you need to pay 2 GOD, so then per each meter square. For example, if your building is 2,000 meters square, 4 stories, each story is 500 meter, you need to pay 2 GOD per each meter. Also, if you have a swimming pool, you need to pay 3 GOD per each meter. For اللي هم boundary wall, you pay half GOD per each meter in length. Okay, and since the commercial protrude or balconies is not permitted in residential, okay, so it is just under the commercial, regular commercial, you need to pay 40 GOD per each meter square. All right, so they do the calculation, and then you need to pay the insurances, the guarantees, to make sure that you have dumped your construction waste in the proper manner and in the proper location, registered dumping sites, and then you pay an insurance around 200 GOD, so they make sure that you have constructed a water well, and then you need to pay fees for each lifts اللي هو المصعد, and which is, here we go, 200 GOD per each elevator. Also, yeah, so it's kind of accumulation of different like fees and some administrative fees. Then you need to pay it. Here we go. Then they pay 10% of the total registrations or licensing fees. So to make sure that you are adhered to the construction according to the blueprints. It is only returnable if you are fully adhered with it. And here we go. There is another kind of an insurances for the water well, which is 100 GOD. And actually, it is ridiculous that that this is a very low amount, actually, guaranteed from my point of view, because in Amman particularly, that face an issues of urban flooding and water scarcity, that we are just putting this frivolous amount as a penalty for you if you did not construct a water well, because many of the real estate developers, they calculate it wisely. They say, okay, the construction of the water well may cost me like 5,000 GOD. Okay, so I will just I will not care about that. I'll just avoid it, and they can just take the 100 GOD penalty whatsoever. It's not a big deal for me. And this is a very important note. There is an obligation. It should be a must. Not only there is a penalty, there should be a must. If you have not constructed a water well, you will not get the occupation permission license. And moreover, as you noticed in the previous lecture, there was no restriction or guideline regarding the size of the water well. So if you have a huge building or a small building, you can just, they are just happy with receiving only maybe 2 meter cube of the size of it. And this doesn't make sense. It should be linked to the size and the number of occupants of the building, the size of the water well. Why also it is important regarding urban flooding? Because as you can see, most of the there's enormous amount of urban growth in Amman, and that increases urban flooding. So if we oblige each real estate developer to construct a proper size water well, the water will not go to the street. It will be saved inside each building, and that reduce the pressure on the infrastructure. Then we will not face any issue in urban flooding. So if you remember, in the last 4 years or 5 years, there was a huge disaster in Amman, and I think there's 4 lives being lost according to urban floods in the downtown. And the mayor of Amman, the then mayor, the last Aqal Beltaji, he went to the media and said that the development of Amman infrastructure regarding the rain drainage may need billions, not millions, billions of dollars. Why we need always to go to the easiest way? We need to be just a little bit more creative, and we need to oblige each real estate developer to force him or force her to do a proper size of the water well. After that, all the water is being saved in the same unit. It will not be released to the streets. And we will use this water because we face an issue of water shortage, and we are the third or the second poor country regarding this. And then we can use this water for uses like irrigation, or like for the sanitation system or whatever. So that's a very easy solution. Just need to enforce them and need to increase the penalties. It's not a big deal. So that's, yeah, you need to pay the construction fees. The local council may exempt some of the buildings, that's particularly religious buildings like church or mosque, from these fees. That's the one I have mentioned. Or any building that's been done for uh, voluntary reasons or whatever, for helping refugees or helping orphans or whatever from these fees. And also, this is a very good support for green buildings. Any green building that is committed to these criteria, like LEED certificates, for example, and been awarded the silver or the platinum or the gold, any of these licenses, they may ask them to be, they may ask the local council to exempt the developer. This is a very good step toward enhancing and encouraging real estate developer to accept and apply green building principles in Amman. So once there is the local council, if you get the approval from the local council committee that your blueprints is being accepted and you may start, you have only 6 months, okay, to pay the fees. If you have not paid, if you have not paid the fees within 6 months, the council decision is automatically considered as rejection, right? It is being, its card could be terminated, and then you need to reapply from the beginning. Also, you need to be to start the construction 1 year after you pay the construction fees. If you have not started the construction 1 year after that, it the council decision as well could be considered as rejection. Also, you need to get a building occupation license within 5 years from the beginning of your construction, or from, sorry, the issuance date of the construction license. Why? Because there's many abandoned buildings in Jordan that the owner may face some of difficulties. They start do some of the construction and they leave it, and it become kind of a hazardous spot, and it could be a security issue for the surrounding people, particularly many abandoned buildings. So now, in order to encourage and oblige real estate developer to finish their building within 5 years, so once you, if you did not do this, you need to repay 25% of the total registration fees. So, for example, if you have not finished the building occupation license within 5 years, okay, you need to repay again like 25% quarter of the fees in order to get to restart the construction on the site again, right? So Article 57 addresses the issue of the mechanism regarding applying to the building occupation license. Now you finish your building, everything is fine. You and you need to start to link it with public utilities, mainly الwater and electricity. Okay, you cannot apply for um, electrical. You cannot connect to the electrical grid without getting this occupation permission. Okay, I can show you an example. Just bear with me. This is an example of occupation license. Now, in the past, it was kind of stamped officially. Now, you can just, it will be published online, okay, and it has this QR as a reference point. So this is an occupation license for a commercial building. It mentions the owner of the building, الادرس of it regarding اللي هي all these details, and land use, as you can see, regular commercial within residential A. And here there is specific provisions, blah blah blah. And here there is, and yeah, it is valid for 2 years, and it is renewable if you, in order to make sure that you still committed with the generic provisions that you have. So you did not do any extension or any of the penalties after getting this occupation permission. And it mentions here the floors. So the building, here mentions where the location in the building that it is now licensed. Sometimes you build, like for example, 5 stories, and you are only capable of registering or licensing 2 part of it. So here it mentions where the one that's been registered. Here there is the ground floor. The total area is 641 meters square, and what is the uses? It's kind of a retail unit. And then here is the next floor, اللي هو mezzanine, and it is 618, right? And it is annexed to the ground floor, the uses, and then you need to pay the fees, and that's it. So this is how it looks, اللي هو building occupation. That's after you finish the building. Okay. هذا سؤال أول شيء. So how to get? So once you only get this license if you fully adhere to the rules and regulations and provisions of the local council. So how to get this? As I told you, this article اللي هي 57 kind of draw out the mechanism regarding the building occupation license procedure. After you finish completely the building, you are not permitted to do any usages or to rent it out unless you get the occupation license. Okay. And also article subsection B, it obliges the governmental institution or any utilities companies like the electrical or the water supply to provide this service for any building without their occupation license, right? So it is a law. C, in order to get the building occupation license, you need to, the subsection C is kind of a checklist. You need to go through them one by one. First of all, you need to make sure, this is the most common sense, you need to construct the building. It should be constructed. We can't give an occupation license for unfinished buildings. What do you mean? Like particularly it should be, you can't apply for a building occupation license without curtain walls, without windows, without, for example, main door. How come? They need to come to make sure that you have fully finished the building. They make sure at least to have tiles in the ground, to make sure that it is now fit for human uses. Okay. Or for many times in the commercial, this is in the residential, in the commercial, they may ask you only to do the plastering and to pave or to tile تعمل tiling for the main entrance only. They may not ask you to do the tiling for the retail units because for many reasons particularly the coming owner or the rentier may just do his or her own decoration. But in the residential, it is a must to fully finish the building. Yeah, you need to put all the windows, the tiling, the painting, at least one layer of paint. This in order to get, particularly the elevator. Yes, also they need to make sure that the elevator is working properly. There is more restriction in the residential to get the occupation permission regarding the finishing, but in the commercial, the finishing is not that important, okay, in comparison to the residential. You need to make sure that all the car parking is ready to receive cars, that the ground is paved or from concrete or from asphalt or any proper material for that. 3, you need to make sure that you have constructed boundary fencing around your property. This is a demand in order to ensure public safety and security as well. You need to make sure that you have constructed the pavement next to the main roads. So the pavement construction, it is the real estate developer, even though it is not in his property. So you need to make sure that all the pavement is constructed. Mainly the pavement is 1.5 meter at max, okay, and it's constructed within the frontal setback. You need to make sure that you have provided all the building services. تذكروا building service number 5. We have discussed them. هم زي الووتر ويل والسويج سيستم سويج septic tank اللي هم that is in Article 49. See this one. Building service are mentioned in 49. You need to provide all these services. You need also to make sure that you have planted and you have done the landscape for all the green areas. You need 7. You need to make sure that you have painted the building facade at least following the natural stone color اللي هو off white. Okay, natural stone color or white or off-white. Okay, and you remember we have discussed this element that you are permitted to do 25% of the total facade area as a different color than the normal natural stone color. You need also to remove all the temporary buildings and all the dumping construction waste from the site. The site and the surrounding of the site should be completely clean, and you need to remove the temporary building. What is the temporary building? Or these kind of caravans, this kind of temporary building that be constructed for as a residence, a temporary residence for the labor and for the skilled labor who works in the site. You need to remove them. You need to remove the temporary toilets in the site. Like all this stuff should be totally removed. You need also to they will come and check that the drainage is not connected to the sewage system. It is connected either to outdoor, to the road surfaces, or if this area is served by rail drainage system, it should be connected directly to it. Okay. 10th, you need to provide submersive tanks, submersive pump for the for all the stories below the street level. So any, as I told you, any floor below the sea level, below the street level, okay, in order to extract all the rail drainage or the sewage system, there should be a small water well that it's connected with a submersive tank, مضخة غاطسة, and then it is connected to outdoor. This is very important in order to avoid any flooding in the building, and you need to keep making sure it is fully maintained before the winter season, before the fall season. Also, you need to provide 11 all the permissions to for concrete pumping, but this one, I don't know, it's not very common. Why? Because I don't know, I haven't experienced this requiring them. In fact, according to the law, before, so this in order to avoid any to avoid the construction of any building element that it is not mentioned in the blueprints. So before you do اللي هم صب البطون اللي هم الكونكريت pouring, you need to get a permission. But nobody actually, according to my recent experience in projects in Amman, they are doing this. But maybe in the future, I don't know, maybe in the future they may start doing this permissions. So you need to provide kind of a permission from the local council. And so the procedure of it is the resident engineer in the site make sure that the general framework اللي هو الطبار is yes committed to the building approved blueprints, and he or she اللي هو building resident engineer who will be responsible in case that he give this information in the wrong manner. However, nowadays it is not. They will just come to the building, see if it's adhered to the blueprints. If it's not adhered, they may ask you to demolish it or to pay some of the penalties. Depends. Right? So these are the 11th requirements regarding in order to make sure in your building before applying for the building occupation license. The building occupation license is valid for 2 years, as I told you right here, for the unfinished buildings, and 5 years for the totally completed buildings. All right, and then you need to reapply for it. Depend on the requirements. You are well, yeah. These are a big deal. Article 58 is about the construction of temporary buildings. So you are permitted to construct, as I told you, the one that you've done during the construction site. You are permitted to do contemporary buildings in order as a service for the building under the construction, for material storage, for as a resident, for the labor, for the guard security or the security, or for the engineers like in temporary offices. These all are permitted, okay, but as I told you, before applying for the occupation permission, you need to demolish them, knock them down, and remove all the debris. Okay. Article 58, 59 is about the construction of high-rise building, but I will put it. I will not discuss it now. I need a totally full lecture for this. Article 60 as well. I need to jump to another article that is. Then I think I can maybe finish it. But let me just see about Article 62. It's about the traffic. All right, Article 63 we started. So guys, do you know when is the last lecture for us? This
I'm not sure, but I think the finals start on the 7th or the 6th.
final start on the 7th.
Yeah, I think so, but you have to double check.
Yeah, please, could you some of you just double check, because I think I just almost done يعني لأنه Article 36 and the remaining is kind of a specific restriction regarding specific usages like a petrol station or whatever. So if you could just while I'm talking about this high-rise building, please let me know if when is the last day. I think we discussed it. I think it's, yes, you're right. The 7th of September is the very last lecture, or the beginning of the final.
Yeah, the finals, I just saw it on the calendar. Finals start the 6th and they finish on the 11th.
All right.
So it
So
starts on a Wednesday.
yeah. So if it starts on the 6th, so basically, so today is the or not, Thursday is the very last lecture to us. Next Thursday, the one after after tomorrow is our very last lecture. The lecture on the 5th is a revision lecture. So in order to discuss any inquiries or questions, all right. And it is also in the 5th the submission, the deadline for your project. Okay, guys. So I should upload all the midterm or cumulative submission of your semester work. So please, on the 5th, submit all your project, the translation project, because I think within these days we will have our final, right?
Okay.
Okay. So in fact, it's a good timing. I think we are doing a very good progress, because Article 59 and Article 60 is about building high-rise building construction. Article 62 about the traffic analysis and its studies. Article from 63 up until 64, 65, up to 60. 70 up to Article 7 up to Article 70, it is a specific requirements for specific uses. Let me go through them just roughly. For this lecture, I have changed my mind many times, but let me go through them one by one, because I need just, it's not very detailed. We will not go through them in very detail, but we will dedicate the next lecture on Tuesday, Thursday, to discuss the high-rise building, because it may need a little bit more explanation, because it's a little bit kind of complicated regarding the calculation and this stuff. So I need to go through these specific requirements for each different usages. Okay, so starting from Article 63, you need to, in order to get, so according, so some of the functions, okay, require specific requirements, like a petrol station. You cannot treat petrol station like a supermarket for many reasons. For, first of all, security reasons, safety reasons, because you're dealing with a very dangerous material. So, for example, you may permit some uses near public schools or schools, but you can't just permit petrol station just next to a school or a kindergarten, right? Common sense. So that's why some of the functions, it requires specific requirements. I will not go through them because they are very easy, but you need to make sure in your mind, if your client comes and asks for this kind of requirement, you just doesn't just go to the اللي هو provision that's provided in the registration license اللي هي مخطط الموقع التنظيمي. You need to go to dig deeper and to make sure in your design to adhere to these elements. For example, you need to, before applying for the tentative approval, because in these big projects, they first of all you apply for tentative approval. You need to make sure that the slope of the street adhere that's adjacent to the land plot. The slope of it should not exceed 5% in slope. Okay, which means it should be almost like even. We can't register a petrol station or a STP road. Okay. Also, you need to make sure that the area is not less than 1,000 meters square, and the frontal elevation should not be less than 30 meters. And why? Because in petrol station there is entrances and there's exits. You can't. It is prohibited to use the same entrance as an exit. Okay, there should be clear entrance and should be clear exit. It should be surrounded with all the fencing and boundary wall, blah, blah, blah. And also it should be, here it says that it should be 100 meters away from any other petrol station, because if there is a fire in that petrol station, the fire will not move to it. It should be at least 100 meters away from another petrol station, schools, colleges, religious building, public libraries, hospitals, public parks, whatever. Okay, so you need to make sure before applying for the tentative that these are the general requirements to be applied. Also, like for example, they require to provide a public toilet for males and females. Okay. And also you need to make sure that there is a specific zone for car services and blah, blah, blah. So the issue is you need to go through this specific requirements, right? For example, they mention you cannot register petrol station in the local commercial. This is common sense because the local commercial mainly is surrounded by residential building. But you can register this in the regular commercial or the central commercial or whatever. So it's just kind of common sense. Here the wedding reception halls. This is because of in order to manage the traffic and in order to manage the car park. So in order to avoid any disturbance. So Article 64 talks about registration and giving building licenses for wedding halls. Article 65, it's about schools and any commercial entities, any educational entities, like whatever. All they consider under commercial entities. There should be a specific regulation, specific in order to get approval. It should be, for example, the site should be served by two roads that either of them are less than 20 meters in width. So all these in order to avoid any traffic congestions, blah, 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 or in order to ensure safety of the surrounding people. Here is about the kindergarten and the nurseries and special education school and for adults caring houses. All these are specific addressed in Article 66, where it is permitted to be constructed, where it is not being constructed. For example, you can just register a nurseries in the residential land uses. That means you can do it in the rural, you can do it in the agricultural. It's fine, particularly اللي هم دور رعاية المسنين. What is the right translation for هم I don't know what's that. Maybe for aging people caring center. So all this stuff it could be constructed in the residential. يعني you can provide a tentative approval following the thing that we have discussed, and see if the local council approve for that or not. Blah blah blah. All these requirements. It's very easy. You just need to. It's kind of a checklist to make sure if your building or the land of the owner fits with this use. Or Article 67 to that regarding the registration of hospitals. Okay. Article, so for example, look over here, they ask you to increase the setbacks. So they ask you maybe to increase it up to 8 meters if you would like to do a tentative or to use this land as a hospital. They put you some restriction regarding FRA or whatever. Look over there. Sometimes they may ask you to have a frontal setback of 20 meters. So all these are very important things you need to consider. Here, Article 68 to register hotels and furnished apartments. Okay. Article 69 in order to dorms, student dorms. And here, this is the furnished apartments that's been rent for daily uses. Okay. Article 70 for religious buildings, church and mosques. Okay. You need to also to adhere with. They have a specific frontal setback, a specific sidal and rear setback. Article 71. It's about how to ensure integration between this law and the previous law. It's not a big deal for me. Anyway, that's all what we would like to discuss this lecture. The next and the very last lecture on Thursday, we will go through, as I told you, all the restrictions and provisions regarding the construction of high-rise building, اللي هو الأبنية العالية. Okay. I'm done. Any questions or inquiries?
لا كله واضح تمام.
Good. So please just again make sure that you submit your translation project by the end or by Tuesday, by next Tuesday, right at max. I think it's enough time. And the next lecture is revision one. Not the next week lecture is a revision one. Thursday's lecture will be our last lecture. And please inform me when is the final, if the final table is being published or officially announced on the university website. Please let me know once it's been published. Okay, so we will arrange lecture time, final examination time, and venue. Okay. and also to prepare myself as well. So please, once it's been published, directly inform me on the timing of the final examination. Okay, thank you very much. Have a good day. See you on Thursday.
Thank
يعطيك
you.
العافية.
Thank you. يعطيك العافية.
Bye bye.